I just recently watched all of the CW show Supernatural, all of it, for the first time, and I thought it was fantastic. I know many people are aligned with me on this, but some think that the show's been getting worse in recent years. But I think they're still doing pretty good for a show that's in its 12th season, and so today I will explain a little theory I came up with which explains Purgatory in a new light. Okay, let's get into this. You were likely jump scared by my cringy intro, which I won't change. Warning, spoilers if you haven't seen seasons 7 and 8 of this fantastic show. Supernatural season 7 revolves around creatures known as Leviathans. They are amongst God's first creations, and are also known as the beasts that consumed the Petri dish by the Grim Reaper. So, God created a dank world known as Purgatory, where he locked them all in away from his other creations. But in Season 7, Castiel must power up to defeat Raphael, and he opens a portal to Purgatory where he sucks in the millions of souls. You see, there's a creature known as Eve that resides in Purgatory with the Leviathans, and she had created many alpha monsters which she unleashed upon the earth. Therefore, when a monster dies, its soul goes to where it was born, Purgatory. But Castiel had sucked in millions of souls, inadvertently including the Leviathans. Castiel made a ruckus and killed many angels and humans. Then he let all of the monster souls go back to Purgatory, but the Leviathans stuck inside of him, possessed him, and blew him up, sending themselves into a water supply so that the several of them could possess and imitate more people. Long story short, their leader possessed a rich businessman, Dick Roman, and they all came close to conquering the world. But then Castiel was resurrected, and he and Dean found a godly weapon that could kill Dick Roman. They stabbed him and he blew apart. This sent his soul back to Purgatory and took Dean and Castiel with it. The other Leviathans then floundered without their Dick, and they ended their plans. So why am I explaining all of this to you again? Because this theory revolves around what monsters are doing upon entry to Purgatory. The exact definition of Purgatory is the following: a place between heaven and hell where the human souls who have died slightly impure are sent to heaven once they undergo purification in here. That's why it's called Purgatory, a purge territory if you will, purification. Now what the heck is my theory here? I will explain. Supernatural isn't one for incorrectly defining something, at least not entirely. They got the general idea with heaven, hell, earth, but Purgatory is the one that stands out as incorrectly defined, and it's not like them to do that. They really just go on about how it's monster heaven, not about how it's between life and death. So what if it is correctly defined? When Benny and Dean were talking, they discussed how Purgatory was extremely pure. At the time, I assumed that they meant in the sense of freedom to kill, and that's true, but there's a bit more to it. Does pure ring a bell? It should, because less than a minute ago I defined Purgatory as a purification station. So sure, they subliminally defined it correctly, rather than just saying it was Monster Heaven and Leviathan Neighborhood. But what is SPN really doing here? In what way are they bending the initial definition? My thoughts on what Supernatural has done here are the following. Human souls don't need Purgatory in this show. Monsters do. It's a place where after their demise, monsters can prove themselves, purify themselves, and choose their fate. Kill or be killed. Humans get all the proving they need upon Earth. If they lead a life of extreme evil, it's hell for them. If they lead a life of normality or extreme good, it's heaven. One chance to prove it all. Monsters, on the other hand, don't get that royalty. Monsters are just humans who have been turned by Eve's creations. It isn't their fault that they hunt and are hungry. It isn't fair to them. They don't get a chance to prove themselves when they are internally forced to prey on humans. And so, upon death, their souls are sent to Purgatory, where all monsters are equal, for them to be purged and purified by hunting. They hunt each other. It's a place where humans don't interfere, a place where you can prove your humanity without the temptation of actual humans, where they can hunt each other, purifying them in a sense, relieving their souls of the pent-up monster inside, so that when you die in Purgatory, you cease to being a monster and your human soul is either admitted to heaven or to hell. And we know that Reapers, oddly enough, have like a direct connection to Purgatory, as we see them use a portal, even though we know that angels still do get brutally beaten down in there. Supernatural. You odd. Notice how there are many different monsters in Supernatural, but only the ones created by Eve are the ones that go to Purgatory in death. And it isn't only because that's where she came from, it's because they are the only monster breeds who were human until they were turned. Their souls are still human. They still need to go to heaven and hell, but to purify the outer monster, they thankfully have a place like Purgatory, just sitting there. Not for them, mind you, it's for the Leviathans, but thanks to Eve, the monsters clearly use it nonetheless. Still don't believe me? How about the sheer oddity of a human portal? Why the heck would there be a portal for humans just sitting there in a world where humans don't even go? And why can it take specifically humans and not something else? So weirdly specifically odd. Oh, but then you realize that humans are the biggest interference in the process of monster purification, and are heavily encouraged to leave, so that monsters don't get distracted from their purifying and ruin everything for both the human and themselves. When Castiel absorbs all of the souls from Purgatory, he says he sucks in tens of millions. However, that doesn't at all impede on this theory, as we don't know how many were in there prior to his absorbing, only the number right when he sucked them up. And the funny thing is that Supernatural constantly hints at something strange going on when monsters die in Purgatory. Castiel asks this. He asks, "The question arises, what happens to a monster when it dies in Purgatory?" He also says that they prey on each other for all of eternity, but his confusion proves his lack of exact knowledge. Well, Castiel, now you know. This show quite literally dangled a massive question in front of us. Maybe my theory has some worth to it after all, but it isn't out of character for Supernatural to warp things said in the Bible. They have to for the sake of the show, so they certainly aren't out of it to allow this to happen, since it's actually what makes their incarnation of Purgatory more realistic. Now, the only question that remains is what happens when you kill a demon. I'll be back soon to answer that one. Thank you for watching. I'm the Theorizer. See you later.